Government sources have made it clear that India's tough measures against Pakistan, including the decision to put the Indus Waters Treaty in abeyance following the Pahalgam terror attack, will remain in place. In a joint defence briefing, senior officers including Commodore Raghu R. Nair, Wing Commander Vyomika Singh and Colonel Safia Qureshi confirmed that the forces have been instructed to fully implement the ceasefire. They also strongly denied Pakistan's claims of damage to Indian military assets and religious sites. Well, joining us to discuss these latest developments is Quinton A. Hitchcock, an American political consultant joining us from Houston, Texas. Quinton, thank you very much for being here with us today. Of course, this is a significant moment given the escalation that we've seen in recent days. Of course, America helping to broker this ceasefire deal. What's the significance of Trump and his administration in their involvement in this ceasefire announcement?
Well, Joshua, thank you for having me. It's good to be with you. Not surprising, I think, with all the conflicts and economic tension, military tension that the United States has around the world with various countries. I think the last thing President Trump and his White House wanted was a bloody conflict between Pakistan and India. These are two countries that have a nuclear arsenal, two countries that largely have a positive, favorable relationship with the United States. So it's no surprise that the president was very aggressive in trying to de-escalate this conflict. We'll see what happens in the coming days, but I think that this was a top priority for not just him, but Vice President Vance, who was also just in India, and our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Yes, Quinton, I'm glad you brought up J.D. Vance. Of course, he said in recent days that this conflict and escalating tensions between India and Pakistan is not American business, signalling that there wouldn't be involvement. Why do you think there has been a change to that?
Well, because I think it can be American business, maybe not directly, but certainly indirectly. Let's look at India. India is the largest democracy in the world. It's a thriving economy, a manufacturing economy that the United States is going to start becoming more and more close to. I talked a couple weeks ago about this bilateral trade deal that the United States is going to enter into India, which is going to put India as probably number one in terms of value for bilateral trade. And then Pakistan has, a different relationship. It's a little bit more complex, but the United States and Pakistan have worked together very, very closely post September 11th in counterterrorism efforts. Pakistan has been very, very helpful to the United States and been very favorable to the United States with securing United States interests in the Middle East, particularly as it regards to terrorism and Israel and many other different fronts, including economically. So I don't know that I necessarily agree with the vice president saying that, this is not American business. The vice president is kind of notorious for not wanting to get involved in whether economic or trade conflicts with other countries or military conflicts. But this is very much something, should this conflict continue, would have devastating impacts on the United States.
Yes, Quinton, I also want to look at the global implications. Of course, we know discussions between the United States and Iran are set to continue tomorrow. Iran spoke with both India and Pakistan during the conflict, as well as Saudi intervention visiting Pakistan too, and also India. Given Trump's visit that's upcoming to Riyadh, how significant are these relationships as well moving forward?
Well, the timing, Joshua, of the president's trip possibly had a lot to do with this. We cannot put into proper context just how important that is for a number of different actors in the Middle East. And I will include Pakistan and India into that equation now that this ceasefire deal included the United States. So that'll be a very, very interesting trip. I think there's a lot of different things on the president's agenda, things that he wants to accomplish, certain messages that he wants to deliver, both indirectly and directly. That visit is going to have severe implications on the future of Israel, on Gaza, on a nuclear deal with Iran, and then now, probably most importantly, what could have been a very ugly and a very bloody conflict between India and Pakistan. So I think the president's trip and the timing of it had a lot to do with this.
Yes, Quinton, to bring an end to this discussion, I want to focus in on comments made by the Indian government talking about terrorism against India now being seen as a direct act of war that will be met with proportionate response. Do you think this is potentially something that the wider global community should be looking at, specifically around terrorism? Of course, with Pakistan's history and past involvement with terrorism, something which of course has been impacting the world in recent months. How important do you think that link might be, and what action do you think that the global community should take?
Well, I think the global community, and again, the United States and all of the West, is going to take the side of India as it regards to terrorism. We've dealt with terrorism in the West. Europe has dealt with it a lot. So I think the world in general, Joshua, is very sympathetic and very alert when it comes to terrorism measures. There's no question. I don't think anybody would disagree that India has every right to defend itself. And seeing a continuation of deadly terrorism attacks, murdering innocent civilians, Indian passport holders and others, is not going to be acceptable. And I think India will have unanimous support in the global community in not only defending themselves, but taking further measures to ensure that deadly terrorist organizations don't ever have the opportunity to wreak havoc on innocent civilians again.
Quinton A. Hitchcock, as always, thank you ever so much for joining us. We will continue to bring you all of the updates following the announcement of the ceasefire that came into effect at 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time.